All right, welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Speakin My Piece, presented by JazzTimes in association with Ropeadope. If you're new to the show, guitarist Dekel Bor sits down with some of the finest musicians in the world and chats it up, and he really digs deep. Dekel has performed with Johnny Griffin, Roy Hargrove, Billy Hart, Reggie Workman, among others, and he's currently on a virtual tour to support his album Let Love Rule. Checking the bells and whistles here. You can join that tour every Thursday on JazzTimes streaming series Jazz in Europe. And there are a lot of great guests coming up in July. Keep an eye out for that. Today we have the great pleasure of sitting down with pianist Aaron Parks. He came to the public's attention during his time with trumpeter Terence Blanchard. And here's an interesting part. Born in Seattle, Aaron Parks attended the University of Washington at 14 and transferred to the Manhattan School of Music at 16. I just delight in hearing those numbers over and over again. It's amazing.
Yikes.
Amazing. His 2008 debut, Invisible Cinema, came out on Blue Note, followed up with the solo piano offering Arborescence on ECM in 2013. And he's no stranger to the halls of Ropeadope. 2 albums here, 2018's Little Big and 2020 Little Big 2, Dreams of a Mechanical Man. The one thing that I hear about Aaron that strikes me is whether it's a musician, a critic, or a fan, everybody talks about these 2 albums and holds him in high esteem. So now we're going to jump over to across the ocean, not to Berlin.
I'm in
Where
Tel
is-
Aviv. Landed yesterday. Missed the flight, the whole 9 yards. But Luz, thank you for the super great introduction. But let me make my good friend here and my brother let's get him to blush. So all the numbers are really really nice, but the truth is, I don't think I'm exaggerating when I'm saying, I mean, the artist, one of the super few artists of our generation. Everywhere I go, where we give master classes or stuff, everybody's playing Aaron's tunes, and I don't think I've ever seen that with someone from our generation at all, and definitely not to that extent of that many tunes. When my dad asked me today who I'm speaking to, I said, "Listen, this guy he's a real genius." And he said, "What do you mean a genius? I mean, like he's like a virtuoso." I'm like, "It's not a virtuosity. It's the cultural significance." And anyway, without any further ado, man, it's just so fucking great to see you. How have you been, man?
Nice to see you too, man. That's much too kind.
I knew you were gonna say it.
Yeah, it's but yeah, and it is a trip. You know, I hearing when people do play my tunes, I really love it, and there is something that I actually really am wanting to do. I'm wanting to. One of the things I'm really interested in doing at some point soon is publishing a songbook of some of my songs which haven't even been recorded yet.
Absolutely.
Because there's a bunch of tunes of mine that I just haven't gotten around to putting out, but I want to hear. I kind of almost want to hear other people play them before I show them how it should
So
go.
the ones you're not recording, I want to record and release first.
There you go. Sure. Cool.
But first things first, how's Maria? How's Lucas? Lucas, like 4 months, 5 months? What are we talking
Lucas
about?
is 8 months, man.
Whoa!
Understand time. Lucas is my son, and he started to crawl like 2 days ago.
Ah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so I'm starting to realize that as much of a challenge as any, it's a joy and it's a challenge, but I don't know anything yet. Like, he's mobile now. It's over. It's a wrap. Yeah, but he's so fun. He's very quick to laughter, and seems to really love music. Maria's doing well. She's
Great to hear, man.
yeah, man, we're good. We're good.
That's great to hear. So
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. A little, it's been I think that it's been kind of weird. I think you would know best that we released our albums around the same time. You were in June, I think, or July,
Like
June.
May. Yeah, you came out a couple months after that, or when was?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so it was really difficult to understand where it met people in a way,
totally.
and and so we're kind of going back on a physical tour now, which is it's kind of like it's super exciting, and I'm kind of excited to see where things going. But you know, it's
Yeah, it's a little strange as well, just getting adjusting back to
exactly. I'm getting the
not exactly
Stockholm syndrome thing,
right for
where kind of
sure.
like the cookies and listening to vinyl at home thing.
Right. Yeah, I hear you, man. Um,
Um, but I've been, you know, been super busy, which is great, and everyone's healthy, and Ronnie says hi, and everybody's
okay.
doing well, and so I want to talk about music.
Yeah, let's do it.
The the first time I've heard of you, we're talking about 2001, and Tommy told me, listen, this guy that I've been playing with since I'm like 15, and he's unbelievable. You got to hear him, you got to hear him, you got to hear him. And I think you were in Manhattan or something,
Yeah, I went
just
to Manhattan School of Music. Exactly. Yeah.
just about. And we went together. It was Tommy and Logan and I. We went to see you at the gallery.
Okay.
And you had I bought this album, and Ambrose is on it. You're playing Knives Out. Obed is on it,
Oh
and
yeah.
Matt
Wow.
is on
Yeah, that's a throwback right there.
it. Yeah.
It's funny.
So
Yeah, with Obed and Matt Brewer and
yeah.
Ambrose on one tune. Yeah.
Um, and it's and I remember listening to that, and I remember I mean when Invisible Cinema came out, everybody's like, and I'm like, I'm not I'm not surprised. Just like he's been here all along, you know. And so when Invisible Cinema came out, it kind of felt. I don't know if it took a minute for you to feel it, but I remember that it felt like the impact was huge, huge.
Mm.
I mean, I think it resonates and still resonates in such a big way because I see some students talk about it like big time, but I think it kind of connected the times.
Mm.
We're talking about what 2008.
Yeah, that was 2008.
Um, and Eli Wolf told me about it before it came out even.
Mm.
That this really special thing coming out, and I wonder what it was like for you to kind of. I mean, this was this major artistic work coming out. You were
Right.
super young,
Yeah,
and
I was very young. I was 25 when that came out. And you know, it came out pretty much right at the time when like in 2008, right around the time that the financial collapse hit.
right,
And Blue Note Records at that time went from having, I don't know, maybe 18 people working there to all of a sudden there were maybe 3 or 4
right,
that were at the staff. And so things were, it was a little bit of a shaky time, and definitely felt like it sort of came out and at a strange time in the world for sure. But it's been cool to see how that album has yeah, seems like it's left, you know, an impact on folks. And I I I was so I was very lucky to get a chance to do something with them and with some, you know, so many of my dear friends on that record,
yeah,
with Eric Harland and Matt Penman and Mike Moreno, who all
yeah.
sound so beautiful. And yeah, it was
So,
a yeah, go ahead.
so walk me through the process of just kind of gearing up to it, because these are not tunes that someone wrote in like 11 seconds and just kind of had this rough sketch and just brought into the gig. I mean, these are major compositions. It's very clear that you went through a journey of how should I put it? I mean, you are sculpting this. I can hear you sculpting at the piano, saying, "No, this is going to be 7.5 bars," and I'm repeating it and kind of seeing, and then coming back a day later or 2 days
Oh,
later, and saying, "What is?" I can kind of hear it in the music.
oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, for better or worse, you know, sometimes for worse because it makes it for better or worse, my songwriting process in general is very long and kind of a bit torturous, and it does involve a lot of recording version upon version upon version, listening back, changing tiny little things, and really, like, I don't know, I it's funny because what I'm interested in as a piano player, what I'm drawn to is I want to make music which I don't want to make music which feels architectural. I want to make music that feels like I'm a gardener a little bit more. I want the at the piano and the way that I'm actually improvising, I want that to feel more fluid and more like organic. But
Absolutely.
as a composer, though, I end up oftentimes becoming so fixated on the details of the structure and the symmetries, and so looking for that balance of the like very deliberate structure and then trying to break away from it in the playing as quickly as
Right.
possible. That's one of the things. I mean, even like the version of Travelers that made it on the record.
Harlan told me that this was like a sound check or something.
This was the sound check. Yeah, that wasn't.
Right.
We just happened. We were just rehearsing it, and I had told Andy Taub, the engineer, if we're playing, try to record us and don't even tell us. And so he was lucky in that we were lucky enough to have that captured. But yeah, that's, there's like.
And what do you feel listening back now?
I feel
not that they brought to the track, that you guys not knowing, it kind of says sound checking, just kind of going for it. What do you think happened there?
It has that unself-conscious kind of looseness, a real sense of listening to each other and trying things out, not trying to perform, but just going for something and not worrying about whether it'll work out or not. The fact is that the version that's on the record, like, I think we add a beat or something somewhere in the form. I don't play the melody that I wrote a lot of the time. That same melody that I spent all this time like finessing and making sure I've got every piece exactly how it's supposed to be. Then on the actual version, I don't even play it. So it's really funny.
So just only because you just brought this up. So there's a part of us that is just hardcore bebop lovers.
Yeah.
That just, you know what I mean? We can talk about Blue Mitchell and Red Chandler with the blue in the face.
Right.
And that feels like I don't want nothing recorded. I don't want the gig recorded. I don't want the gig filmed. I just want to let the music breathe. And we're going to improvise as much as we can. And I think also our generation, me and New York at the same time, I think we got to see the Wayne Quartet a lot.
Right.
So there's this one side that you say, well, it's not really the melody that I wrote, but I'm also a composer. And then there's Aaron Parks in 2020, where the tunes on the new album are, I mean, these are like jewels that are so well sculpted. And it's obviously, you pay super attention to putting everything in its right place. So,
right. How do you
feel about that?
Yeah, it's such a tricky thing, I'm looking for that sweet spot. I think with the newest record, what I was really excited about with the band, why I wanted to capture it, especially on this second record, was that it felt like we were starting to really develop an intuitive improvisational chemistry with each other. That I was feeling on the live gigs.
So let me cut into you. Yeah. I saw you guys playing just before you recorded the album.
Right. Yeah.
And I swear to God, I was telling friends afterwards. I was saying, listen, I thought that the unisons were edited. I mean, you guys play like one person.
Oh, me and Greg, right? Yeah, right.
It's uncanny, and also you and Crane.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, they edited it's like I thought it was edited on the first album. And then I see you guys live, and when you talk about chemistry or band chemistry, I don't think I've ever seen a band like that. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I was feeling like, I mean, thank you. And like, that was one of the things that that I care about, that I was really trying to develop that sense of chemistry. And I was feeling we were really just starting to get going. One of the
Right.
things I was most looking forward to of 2020 was we had a week at the Village Vanguard that was supposed to happen in April of 2020. Now that's rescheduled to now it's 2022. But it looks like it'll actually happen still with Little Big. I was so looking forward to being in one room with that band and going through that. Sort of like a week at the Vanguard feels like a tunnel, and you go through that and you evolve as a different
And
band and as a different
and you
musician.
don't have to travel. You can just kind of let things breathe during the day. You don't have to
Exactly
travel
right.
mad every
Exactly
day.
right. So I'm really looking forward to that, getting a chance to do more of that. I mean, one of the things we also did some more of on this last record, there's only a couple of little snippets of it, but there were a few. We did like 3 half hour long just total improvisations with the band.
Huh.
And on the
So
newest
how
record,
long you recorded for 3 days?
we recorded like 3 days, I think, 3 or 4 days, maybe even actually. And we did, yeah, a bunch of just long improvised sessions, just vibing with each other. And we took a few like 2.5, 3 minute snippets that made it onto the final record.
Ah.
That felt like they had like a really good vibe that fit within the rest of the tunes. But I was really excited to start taking the band on the road and start getting a little bit more scrappy and coloring outside the lines. And because yeah, it is true that the compositions, they kind of have, it's like you're saying, like I there's a lot of attention to detail in where the melodies fall, and it's like a lot of the songs feel very simple, but it's a hard won simplicity.
No, nothing
It's a
feels
hard
simple.
won simplicity by like cutting away everything that isn't the song, something like that.
Listen, yeah, I think when I listen to your tunes and some of the new albums, I actually learned just by ear. Uh, I feel it's almost like seeing a sculpture at work. You begin with this long chunk. You
Right.
take a little bit here and a little bit there, and then you add a little bit here. You took too much.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of what it seems like. I mean, and I think, um, I mean, there was this guy that we both know that came to one of my gigs and we playing music, and he says, "Oh, it's so cool that you guys are playing on the 2 chords." I'm like, "2 chords? The music is so fucking hard. What are you talking about?" And I think in your case, it's even more so. I mean, and that's, to me, it's kind of genius, because I think in your case, everything is nothing in this are in chunks of everything. Every breath has to breathe for its natural length.
Right. Well, I mean, that's sort of the weirdest and hardest thing to do, and especially, making composed materials that breathe as if they had the phrasing of improvisation,
Yeah.
and that don't feel like they were notated in
Yeah.
a music notation program. And you just,
Yeah.
sometimes getting the rhythms to sound very natural and tossed off is very challenging and a little bit confusing. And
You have a way of doing it. I mean, even if when I hear you play standards, you have a way of making things really breathe. It's you don't never overplay the piano. Everything kind of
well,
in a way.
I mean, that's kind of the stuff that I care a lot about, and so I'm always, it's a goal, so it's something that I'm trying to get better at all the time, for sure.
So another question about the album and just the journey you kind of made, which is astonishing. This band is almost like, this is not a jazz. These are not. It's not a. How should I even put it? I mean, um, it's unique entity. It's
Right,
not a. It's not a couple of jazz guys that just rehearse the thing a couple of times and they're doing a gig at the Fat Cat.
right,
The whole vision for the whole thing is completely different.
right.
And what was the process in in kind of getting there in your consciousness to that this is where you're going. Because I mean, when I see people hear you guys live, I kind of felt that this is going to be like what happened with Light as a Feather or something, or the first Return to Feather. Like it's going to be this cult thing. People sing the melodies at the gig,
Right.
and people are standing. They get up from their chairs and they stand at their feet. I mean, something is very visceral and very engaged is happening, and that comes from your consciousness and the journey that was made. This is not a jazz club thing anymore.
I mean, I'm definitely like this band. Yes, it's I don't know how to put it. I love when that kind of thing happens, you know, and I welcome people to, like, you know, I love when this band plays in like a big room and people aren't sitting but are standing and can like be packed together and move around. There's something that feels a little bit more correct for the vibe of the music than just sitting down and politely applauding after solos. That's not really what this thing is about. It is intended more as a kind of the idea is more like a rock band, like a or whatever. I don't know what genre is, what that means even, but like that kind of experience, that is the idea. I'd love to have more visual components that we could bring in, projection or
Absolutely.
like, you know, light show, that kind of thing would be fun. But yeah, putting the band together, you know, it's a little bit, it felt a little bit like putting together the crew, like, you know, in every heist movie, how they meet the people who are going to be right for the team one by one, and they start putting together their crew. It was a little bit of a feeling like that, with meeting all of the folks in the band and trying things out and figuring out one by one, okay, like who's going to be the person who's perfect for this. And Greg on guitar, Greg Tui, is such a unique and special musician who really just like, I mean, it from the beginning, just very few, like he was able to play the melodies of the music before even talking about improvisation or anything. The way that he approached phrasing and living inside of the song and letting it really, he would play the songs as if he understood what it took
Write them,
as if he'd written them, basically, you know.
And he also has this amazing rare ability where it doesn't sound like, okay, we're in this one space for the tune, and then we're in a whole different space for the solos.
Exactly. Well, that was something that was very important from the beginning with this band for me, that I really wanted it to feel like all of the improvisation came from within the song, rather than us sort of trying to graft something on top of it, you know.
And then the two of you have a way of playing together very selflessly, which is
Right.
It's kind of amazing. I mean, that's what creates a band, really, not just an ensemble.
Yeah, well, that's something I miss those guys. It's been such a long time since we've played, and you know, then Tommy, of course, Tommy on drums, he lives in Montreal now, and so he hasn't been able to come into the States since the pandemic, so we've been just haven't seen him at all.
I'm getting a sense that he kind of likes it up there.
He likes it up there for sure. Oh, he's loving. I mean, it suits his vibe for sure. Being up in Montreal,
There's this huge music scene that he really loves being a part of. I mean,
yep. No, what a special musician though, and yeah, somebody that I've known since I was 13 or 14.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And DJ on bass is that's the secret weapon right there.
What tell me about that.
DJ David Ginyard Jr., he is it was one of those things that really kind of brought a glue to the ensemble and helped connect. I don't know, he understood, very similar to Greg in a way. It felt like he understood the songs very, very quickly, and then started to create parts for the songs that
Right.
felt so integral that it was like, well, yeah, that's just a song now. But that was, sometimes just a bass line that DJ came up with.
Absolutely.
And
And
really,
there's not a lot of people that want to do that
exactly, he plays the
nowadays.
bass.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
plays the bass. He,
Since we've been in Berlin, I've been playing tons with Ginsberg,
oh,
which
cool. Yeah,
yeah,
Ginsberg's great. Yeah,
and he's been amazing at doing just that.
that's so cool. Yeah, say what's up to Josh. I've seen him a few years ago when I was there, but we used to
Right.
play together. You know,
I know,
he's
I
on a
know,
record of mine.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going back before I'm moving forward. I'm going back to the process of composing. So walk me through it. What happens? You sit at the piano. You start with one phrase. You let it. I mean, what is the process like? How long is it? What does
It
it consist
depends,
of?
man. It really depends. I mean, sometimes it starts at the piano. Other times sometimes it start, every song has a different process, right? There are some that start, a lot of the ones on the record actually started with, on this latest record, a few of them on the record started with a drum loop, first of all. I just had a drum beat in my mind. First thing, I had something that was just stuck in my head, a vibe.
And did you flesh it out before going to the piano?
I would sometimes,
Or just
what I did, sometimes I've got actually right here, my little TR8 drum machine. So I would program in a drum loop into there and just have that looping, 1 or 2 bar phrase, and
I'm
just,
so behind the times. It's like a joke.
no, man. I mean, I've got this, but I don't like. I'm such a beginner with it. I've got rudimentary skills, but it's enough to get me like, I can get a vibe going and then start to build things around that drum part. And yeah, once I start finding something that feels like the core of the song, there comes a moment where I feel like I either decide upon something or I just stumble upon something which is like, this feels like a very clear idea that I can build with, that I can that is going to lead me somewhere. Then I don't know, I become kind of obsessed, and I'm sort of looking at it from every angle, trying out a lot of different things, adding things, taking things away. The process involves a lot of playing things on the piano and recording them and listening back, and almost no notation.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So
Yeah,
what does recording and listening back give you? As
recording,
opposed to playing it at the piano super slow or something.
playing it at the piano, I know what it's feeling like as I'm playing it, and I can have a sense of what I think it sounds like. But I've also learned that I can't completely always trust my immediate sense of what I think something sounds like as I'm playing it. That sometimes I need that, just a little bit more remove, a little bit of distance. So going like taking my voice memos, putting on some headphones, going for a walk, listening back to something. Sometimes it's something like, right in the middle or near the beginning of when I'm working an idea out, I capture something which is like real and true about the idea. And
Right,
then,
right, right, right.
and then I sort of forget it as I'm trying to, finesse it later on.
So
Or
that's
little,
the reason I
yeah.
do the same, but I never listen to it because when I listen to myself,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I'm one of those guys that, I mean, if you put a guitar in my hand and I strum it, I'm kind of happy. I mean,
Right,
just I'm still like, oh my God, it makes sounds.
right. Sure.
It moves. Oh my God.
Yeah, right.
I still get that like daily, but so that's that adrenaline thing to it. but and that I really enjoy, that sometimes colors the music, obviously. But if I listen to the thing that I'm trying to find out about, it's immediately like like standing naked in front of a mirror.
Sure, right.
That I don't want to deal with. I mean,
Right. And so I guess the thing is like, as quickly as possible, getting away from thinking of it in terms of like an ego thing, and just thinking of the composition as like an object of inquiry. Like, I'm trying to understand this. What is this? What is this thing? What is this? What does it want to be? What does it have to show me? Not what does it say about who I am? You know, not am I any good because I wrote it? More like, let me just take myself out of the picture and try to understand what are the things that this composition wants to do, and then what are the principles that are kind of holding it together, that then I can explore the variations of them.
I feel exactly the same way. I feel that every composition has a main character and one or two supporters.
Right.
And they have their identity, and their identity dictates where they need to go. And they have this whole sense of gravity around them that they kind of want to go somewhere. You just have to be patient and find out. It's not about where you want to take them.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm starting to feel the same about soloing. I'm starting to feel the same, that once you play the first phrase,
yeah,
you're on a train and it goes somewhere, and you just have to stay on the track. Just don't let yourself get in the way. The ideas will let you know where they want to go.
I think that there's something, yeah. I really enjoy I have similar ideas about soloing to a certain degree. Like, I feel like oftentimes it's like when the solo starts, I'm not like thinking of what I definitely don't want to think about what I'm going to try to do. I don't have an agenda. I just sort of spill over, and then I'm like, okay, what's happening now? How can I deal with
this? Canvas.
Like, yeah, and let's juggle these ideas. And when I'm in a particularly relaxed and creatively available state of mind, which, you know, doesn't happen all the time, but when I'm in that kind of state, then I can even sort of zoom out, and I can look at, okay, where does the train want to go? How can I be a little bit mischievous and throw in some obstacles for myself?
Right.
Play around, subvert expectations, and also go exactly where it wants to go some of the time. Allow and sort of have a you know, a big picture sense.
Man, I'm so happy.
And a playful thing. Yeah.
I'm so happy you're saying this, because I never do that.
Right.
I kind of don't let myself. I'm kind of in this zone right now where don't touch the object. You don't want to look at it. Let it breathe.
Just let it do its thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that
band, listen to yourself on the outside, and be present, and let it be what it needs to be.
And I think that there's a, you know, like so many things, I think there's a tremendous amount of value in taking that approach. Absolutely. And like, you know, sort of not intervening and allowing it to do what it wants to do. Totally. That's great. And it's also cool.
Throwing the joker every now and then.
Yeah, totally. Exactly that.
Absolutely. All right. So now that I'm just going to throw some names that I know have huge meaning for you, and I'll let you, you know, it's a free for all. Okay. Use it as you like.
Okay.
So the first one would be Paul Bley.
Oh yeah, that's a good one to throw out there. Talk about the jokester. Talk about like the
Riddler.
Yeah, an agent of chaos in some ways, but also an agent of beauty, right?
Beauty. I think there's something in you guys have a way of not adhering to physical time, the metronomic time that makes the music come alive. I think both of you guys have developed a totally original language super early on. And I think both of you guys have this, it's this courage and beauty that for most.
Paul Bley is just, you know, like you know, he's one of my patron saints, I guess you could say, like just sort of
Wow.
someone, and it isn't always immediately evident in the type of music that I write necessarily, but because I tend to write things, I tend to write some things, I should say, that have so much more structure than anything Paul would ever like to play, you know? And so stylistically, there's very, like, I don't think he would necessarily like what I'm doing. And I don't care. Yeah, I don't need him to like it. I love what he was doing, you know? And he sort of, I don't know, there's what to say. I mean, what you're talking about with
Favorite moments.
what you're talking about with rhythm though, is really important. He has a non-metronomic way of phrasing, yes, where it's over the bar line and sort of hovering, but just as importantly, he has like a serpent-like kind of coiled energy that can snap back, and it doesn't feel like sloppy, or I mean it feels like
Sloppy in
blurry.
the best sense.
It feels blurry, but it doesn't, the way sometimes when people play kind of out of time or over the bar line, it can feel a little bit like an elastic on a pair of sweatpants that has just been stretched too much and it doesn't snap back anymore. And so it's just like, oh, it's just floaty, but there's no real sense of
But
gravity or
with him,
urgency.
I always feel that it's still in the heart of the rhythm section. It's not me
Exactly.
floating over something.
Yep, exactly. And that's what Blay showed me so much of. And Blay sort of in some ways being, you know, uh, a one way of thinking, like a piano avatar of some of Ornette's ideas, uh, taking some of Ornette Coleman's contributions and translating them to the piano. And then, of course, they both continued on to go on do incredibly different and very unique things each.
I think the Ornette connection is almost like a too easy one, because I think to do something like Open to Love that early in history, I mean,
Yeah,
it's so ahead of its time.
Open to Love is, yeah, that's you know, that's a
I
solo
mean,
piano
emotionally
record
ahead of its time.
of, yeah, of biblical importance to me, kind of, you know, like that's just um it goes straight for the jugular, you know, emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about Terrence. I mean, what was it like? I mean, it was a a very long relationship.
Yeah, it was I
And you
was
were
so
so,
young.
yeah.
I was so young, man. I was 18.
Kenny made the hookup?
Kenny Barron recommended me for that gig, and yeah, I, you know, I've told this story a lot of times, but I showed up for a recording session that
What?
I showed up for. Well, what basically Terrence gave me a call and told me to come by the studio. He was having a recording session with Chick Corea and Eric Harland and Ruben Rogers, and Wynton Marsalis was like the moderator. He told me to just come by and just be there to hang out.
Right.
And then when I got there to the studio, and Terrence let me know that Chick wasn't going to come, and so if I wanted to just jump in and play for this thing, I there must be a recording of it somewhere. I'm sort of like terrified to hear, because I must have been so, but I didn't have time to get even nervous, you know. I didn't even have time to get freaked out about, you know, any of that. I just was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do this. And then Terrence offered me the gig right after that. But he's an incredible mentor. He really he's the kind of musician who, and the kind of band leader who gave you a lot of room to try things out. He wanted his band to be making just make big swings, right? Even if there were big misses. He would rather that we were taking chances and really like chasing what we were hearing, and, you know, going for something rather than playing it safe, right?
Yeah.
And
So, I'll
the
tell you
very
what I think. No,
Mhm.
go ahead. Go ahead.
There were, but he didn't offer a lot of he didn't say a lot, right? He didn't say a lot. Every once in a while, if you played something good, you might get a woo from him on the bandstand. And every once in a while, if you weren't cutting it, he'd be like, "Hey, you got to like." He'd point out that something wasn't really in the pocket. And
From my experience, 99% of the people that I ever work with,
right,
they don't say that much.
right. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you either hear the music or you just don't hear the music, and there's nothing that from my experience, I almost never get.
Right. But it was, for me, I mean, I think he didn't say a lot, but you could sort of tell from the way that he was playing, if I was comping too much, he might just stop playing for a while. And
Right.
I'd be like, oh, okay. Like there was a lot of nonverbal, but musical communication. He might not play, or he might jump in with just some deadly phrase that just like overpowered whatever kind of bullshit that I was playing at the time. It gave me an opportunity to really learn so much by doing. And for me, that record, Wandering Moon, the record that
Yeah, Derek is on it, right? Derek and
yep,
Holland.
yep, exactly.
Bryce is on it. Great record.
That record, I was obsessed. I think that came out in 99, something like that,
Right.
99 or 2000. I was
Ed
obsessed with
Simon,
that
right?
record. Hmm?
Ed Simon is on it, right?
Simon,
Ed
yep,
Simon.
yep. I was obsessed with that album. That was like my favorite record at the time. And with, compositionally and like just sort of having a band idea. So getting a chance to play with that band, um, both with Terrence, and then just as importantly, in many ways, the other musicians that he put together.
Lionel was there around the same
Exactly.
time.
Lionel joined the band not long after I did.
Kendrick
Eric
did a
Kendrick joined the band. Derek Hodge, Brandon Owens was in the band for a while. Bryce,
band.
of course, and
Yes,
I learned so much from all of these folks,
absolutely.
and developed a real feeling of that band was like a very early musical family for me. Uh,
Yeah.
and the version of the band and then having the opportunity to work with Herbie Hancock producing on the record Flow,
Right.
that was really something else as
What
well.
was it like?
I
I
mean,
mean,
well, first of all, I was I don't know exactly, I was so sick when we made that recording. I had 102 Fahrenheit fever, something like that.
wow.
I had some kind of strep throat. I was really not in a good place. So the whole making of the record, I was semi-delirious. So there's a lot of it that I don't completely remember. But I do remember that, I sort of managed to get myself together enough to be able to, Herbie was giving, like, he was there in the studio with us for the whole time we were recording it. And there were first of all, just what Herbie played like, because he played on a few tunes. And there was one song we did, Lionel's tune, Benny's tune.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, modern classic, really. And we did, I think there were probably between 5 and 6 takes of that tune that were done.
A lot.
It's a lot of different takes. And Herbie played completely different on
Wow.
every single take. He did
Wow.
not, it was not an approach of, I'm going to try to refine my approach and I'm going to use my favorite things from the last solo and I'm going to do it better this time. It was like, I'm trying this. Next time I'm throwing that all out and I'm going to try again.
Wow.
Which was
That's
amazing and really like inspiring to see how that went down. and then just giving me some, at the time, I mean, some really interesting kind of more visual and metaphorical advice about playing. There was one of the tunes, Derek wrote a beautiful song called Over There. And it starts with the solo piano, like just sort of an exposition of the melody. So after one of the takes, Herbie comes up and he's like, yeah, that was really nice. But do you think on the next take, you could try it with a little bit more hope?
Huh.
A little bit more hope. And so I'm like, what does that sound like? You know, what is
an F sharp? What is that? More F sharp.
And then on another one, he was like, in your comping, I'd love it if you could put some more like fireflies and hanging lanterns in there. Let's create some like of that sort of nighttime in the garden vibe.
But I totally see how that he would, if there's a person who would say that to you, that would be you. That connection I get.
Yeah, well, and so I think that having those experiences very early on became you know,
I tell you what I hear that you got from there. I mean,
totally.
The thing is, there's this generosity in the sound on the instrument that you and Terrence had. And there's the idea of having a band sound. And there's the commitment to taking composition very seriously.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, I'm moving to the next one.
Okay, cool.
Brad Mehldau, and I'm talking about a pocket in time where talking about Volume 2 at the Vanguard, Volume 3 songs, and then Largo.
Yep, that particular chapter of Brad's discography, I would maybe say Volume 3 and Volume 4 were the ones that I spent the most time with. Although those, and then Largo, of course. There is no any of my modern discography without Largo. Yeah. As kind of as sort of opening the door and like being like, hey, you know, you could do this too, right?
So tell people why.
Let's see. It's just first of all, thinking so much care put into the sound and the production, right? And using the studio as a tool in many ways, not being afraid to go into the studio and create things that you wouldn't necessarily always be able to do live on the bandstand.
Right.
You know, the fact that
that's what I'm doing right now.
So there's some of that in Largo for sure, you know, that orchestrationally opened up my sense of what the color palette could be. And so without that, and without, you know, spending time listening to different rock bands and working on movie scores and things with Terrence, all of these different things work together. And you know, there is no glockenspiel part on Nemesis.
Right.
Or Mellotron on that tune, or those types of choices and those types of additional layering, or for that matter, the way like the sort of the percussion choir that's on the title track of the newest Little Big record, on Dreams of a Mechanical Man, that's very much sort of feels indebted to some of the aesthetic on Largo, on, you know, Paranoid Android, for example, right?
And I can also hear in your thing that there's the thing that started to develop where when you're playing your own music, especially, I can hear there's an oboe part on the third finger from the left, and I can kind of hear that thing is kind of starting to develop, and that doesn't come from the piano trio tradition.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, so Brad, I mean, so many things about Brad, especially, and then I always love Brad, but especially in that pocket of time, it really made such an impression on me. The the combination of like not being afraid to write simple song-like melodies, right? Like the combination of simplicity with complexity, right? And then, you know, a very clear example of that as well, and the first track on Largo, When It Rains,
Right.
very simple singable melody. The harmony is not that, the harmony is very, it's beautiful, but it's not complex for the sake of being complex, right? But then the thing that's so interesting about that tune to me, that then I started to really I think I started to zero in on, is the combination of the two types of rhythms sort of happening. The fact that there was like the straight and the sort of the swung, the triple and the duple really like mashed up with each other in a very explicit way that became, you know, really fascinating and interesting, and something that I'm still always like, that I'm always exploring in a lot of my music.
And also I think that he has this ability, especially on that tune that you just mentioned, to play something that is, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to create a whole world and a whole universe that is that adventurous and stunning and also just incredible out of that simple structure.
Right. Yeah.
It kind of almost always throws you into this super consonant world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's and I think there's something about that pocket in time in his playing, Volume 2 and Volume 4 especially, is that you feel that that this guy is in a rush to get somewhere. He's exploring the boundaries of his mind.
Right. Yeah.
That I really think that kind of rubbed off on you.
For sure. I mean, yeah, huge influence, of course. I mean, and it was one of those things. One of my early mentors was the great pianist Joanne Brackeen. And I met her when I was at a camp when I was maybe like 14 or 15. And I hadn't heard of Brad at all at that point. But she was like, she told me two things. She was like, you should come to New York and you need to start listening to Brad if you want to know what's up. You know, right. and so I remember hearing that like at an early age. So for me, like some of my big formative influences, yeah, Brad, Gonzalo Rubalcaba. I listened to Inner Voyage. Inner Voyage was the one for me. That was the one that also like stunned me. Again, you know, similar to Brad, like the combination of the restraint, but also like the lightning bolts that come firing out of nowhere every once in a while.
And he gets the sound on the piano that you think your mother is hugging you when you're a kid. I mean,
it's like, exactly wow. Right. Yeah. It's like pearlescent. It's
you know that album that he did with Hayden, Nocturnal?
Of course.
I mean, that for me is, out of all those insane monumental works of Rubalcaba on his own.
Yeah.
I'll take that album any day.
But, the opening track from that record again, like that's one of those like just instant vibe, you know. Absolutely. Like, okay, that's never a bad idea to put that record on. All right. There's some albums that you're like, this sounds good to me right now, but there's other times when I'm not going to want to hear this. That record is always a good idea to listen to.
Absolutely. I think that what you just said is the most difficult when you're the artist. It's like I have this one album. I don't ever want to hear that again. But right. So last one, we could go forever, but last one, I kind of want to say Kurt Rosenwinkel, just because I think for our generation, I mean, you were in the band for a long time.
Yeah.
And for me, that was my favorite band of his. And I mean, for our generation, he's like a cult figure. I mean, especially for a guitarist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's like a joke almost. I don't understand how he doesn't get annoyed every second.
Well,
Uh, I
I
mean,
mean, Kurt is Kurt is so many things. I mean, he's like a big brother to me, you know. I was
yeah.
in a lot of ways. And you know,
Let me put it in the context, just so we
yeah,
can go
sure.
in the right direction.
Okay.
I think for our generation, uh, and our whole age group, I think out like Enemies of Energy, and Next Step,
Next Step was the one for me, but yeah. And then
and
Hardcore.
Hardcore, and also the one with Josh was big for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are, I mean, these were, I mean, that and Dharma Days. I mean, that was like all
Right.
we would listen to.
Totally.
And so kind of, I want to put it into that pocket of time where he would just come out with another album every year and a half or 2 years. It was the seminal work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it I think so. I think it was Jaleel Shah who told me about the Next Step for the first time. I was going to Manhattan School of Music with him, and we were riding in his car one day, and Jaleel was like, "Hey, you want to hear a record that I'm obsessed with, and I think is like, this is what's up." And he put on the Next Step, and I mean, that it's just like, I appreciate what you say about me being in your favorite band, but that's the band. Come on, like, that's the band with Mark Turner and Ben Street and Jeff Ballard. That was that like the classic quartet. I'm sorry.
When I got to New York, you know, in New School they have like one guy on an instrument for the full ride thing. So
Right.
Marino just left, and he would tell me stories how like he would still see those guys at Smalls. I mean, when
Right.
I got there, they were already not doing Smalls anymore.
Right.
Uh, yeah, I mean that's a youth thing. I keep telling him that he has to kind of put that for a minute, but
It's a special. I mean, uh we've got some tentative plans to get back with Kurt and Revis and Faulkner, actually.
oh
So,
great.
you know, hopefully sometime next year. But I don't know, man. Kurt's, as for, I mean, as a guitar player, obviously, right? Just sort of, you know, iconic, and really has influenced, you know,
And also when you joined the
generations
band,
generations for, you know, sometimes to the point where I'm just like, okay, we got to like dial down your Kurt effects. Like, let's you know, let Kurt have his sound. You find your
exactly,
sound. It's
exactly.
gotten to be a little bit of a problem at times. As a composer, his harmonic language, that it opened my mind. It opened my mind. So many things. Yeah, understand, like, those are songs that I've, you know, I don't know, so many of those tunes are fundamental to the way that I think about how harmony and how music works,
Yeah.
in terms of what harmony can do and how chords can move to one another, in the same way that, like, learning Wayne Shorter tunes has opened my mind. Learning Kurt's tunes opens my mind as well. Like, you know, yeah, I think of them, they sort of occupy a similar space in terms of my, like, development and understanding of harmony.
And I think what people don't understand about Kurt, I mean, especially the younger ones who are kind of studying him in this new age of technology, is that this guy is he's this natural oracle. Like he doesn't overthink any of it. He
Right.
kind of closes his eyes and he's kind of comes out. I mean, it's not this preconceived language. I mean, he's this real deal organic
Yeah.
genius.
And he has, like, you know, obviously a tremendous amount of facility, and he's got all those goods on the instrument. And when he wants to be, he is
Yeah,
one of our greatest poets as well.
absolutely,
You know?
absolutely. When you joined the band, this was after the Vanguard double album,
That's right.
and I mean, I don't know if I'm assuming that other instrumentalists understand this, but I mean what he matured into by then on the instrument is
Right.
it's not even real anymore. I mean, I'm telling you, it's not real anymore. It's not.
Well,
Anyways,
I mean, we had such a you know, like we had such a special tour. The first time that we met was, you know, the bridge between Terrence and Kurt is Eric Harland, right?
yeah,
And so it was on a tour of Japan with Eric Harland's band that we
that Kurt did.
yeah, Kurt did it with Eric
Right.
Harland's band and Matt Penman.
Ah, very cool.
And so that was the first time I played with guitar quartet that became sort of the basic rhythm section for the band that became Invisible Cinema.
Right, right.
That's where we played some of those tunes for the first time, like Peaceful Warrior and Praise. And
I think that he plays those so amazingly well.
oh man, I love
He
Kurt on
plays your
Nemesis
music
as
in the
well.
most
Yeah,
amazing way. And
yeah,
people ask me a lot about what it's like playing with Harland. He's
yeah,
like a big brother to me.
yeah.
And I always say that there's no way for me to put that into words. There's just no way. But the fact that it's the most easy to play with.
It's
But
it there is I don't know, like there is so much love and joy in his playing, and it feels like simultaneously like very comfortable and also like playing a video
and
game
riding a lightning, yeah.
well, yeah, like, well, or riding a lightning or playing a video game that you've got the cheat codes to, or something like that. And yeah,
Yeah, welcome to the master level. We're gonna kill
yeah,
you now.
yeah, totally. Like there's a and he knows what to do a lot, so much of the time. Like he's the kind of guy, for me it's like I've learned how to leave a lot of space in my playing, right? And so much of knowing how to leave space has come from having trust from growing up playing with Harland, that like he knows how to take care of that space, right? And either fill it in or respond or decorate it or leave it open. Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this something that again I think that music education is kind of fucking people up because we did this thing in Logan's band,
Mm-hmm.
and there was another drummer on the thing, and he couldn't make it, and Eric came in, no rehearsal, no thing, and in 2005, Logan's music was beyond hard.
Oh
Not
yeah.
something. I mean, wow.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
we
yeah.
were a band, so we knew the music. I mean,
Yeah.
we knew the music inside out. We were still reading the shit out of it. He still sounded like this mad genius,
Right.
and everybody's trying to keep up. And then Holland comes and doesn't look at the charts
Yeah, right.
and played by ear better than all of us.
Wow.
And that was to me almost like a miracle. It's not. It doesn't seem real. It's like this guy. What he's the sphere that he's in, or it was really on one of them. He was watching a miracle.
Well, this is good. I mean, this is overdue. This makes me want to call Harland and just
Right.
share my love for him, because
Absolutely.
there.
So last thing and last thing I want to talk about before we all go home is I want to talk about Jane's Farm. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think people understand. I mean, the impact was huge, and it kind of felt like Josh heard you guys and he said, "I want Dan."
Right. I mean, it was super fun, man. I was like great to play, so super great to play with Josh. I'd grown up listening to him as well. That record, what was the one for me? I mean, there were of course there was Timeless Tales, but then Beyond was the one that came out like right at the right moment for me, that that was another one of those ones that I was listening to kind of obsessively.
After Beyond, all of a sudden my band had a tune in 13, a tune in 9.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, right. Exactly. So hearing that kind of hearing those tunes like that, I think from an early age made me feel comfortable with like trying out things in odd meters. I have to give it up to also like folks like Miles Okazaki, who
Yeah.
who had a huge impression on me when I met him when I was pretty young.
Were
Hearing
you,
Miles's music.
were you at the same time at Manhattan with Ian Danwa and
No,
Hart,
no,
those
no, no.
guys?
But I knew Miles. I can't even remember where I knew him, but there was some tune of his that he played that I think it was one of the first tunes that I heard that was like in 9 or something like that. And I was
Right.
like, well, this has just got a lope that I'm into. I'm into this feeling. And yeah, with Josh, it was, I mean, that band was super fun. Just like
It kind of sounds to me, as long as no one else hears this, that the whole band is formed around your thing.
no,
That
man.
has to
I
be a
mean,
good company.
well, I mean, I feel like we were looking for something, and then and then we I think that yeah, Josh sort of came after after hearing Invisible Cinema and wanted to do something, and then we put it together, and then uh but Matt's writing is super beautiful as well, and Eric's tunes are super cool. um but yeah, I mean, that band was just a lot of fun. I was glad to get to travel so many places. It was nice to um get to play with the rhythm section that I had so much history with, and that we already had such a thing, and Josh already had a thing with them as well, because we both had these sort of interlocking histories with those guys in one way or another.
What is
And
it like? What is it like following a Josh Urban solo? I mean, the guy is this brilliant mind that's exploding. I mean, there's almost no one that plays at that level every night.
oh, it's really it's wild with Josh, because he is so relentlessly creative. He's always pushing himself. He's not like he's not sitting there satisfied with where he's at by any means, right? He is like he's always trying to challenge himself to go beyond what is his comfort zone, and and simultaneously so he's simultaneously doing that, and he also cares a lot about delivering to the audience and connecting with them and putting on something that feels like it is an invitation for them to join the party, right? um, so he is simultaneously working on connecting with the audience while doing like exploratory work with like and really pushing himself to go beyond himself, and that's something which was super inspiring. And I feel like I don't know, man, like I I don't know if I always was as I'm trying to figure out the right way to put it. I feel like touring life wasn't always the simplest thing for me to always find 100% focus and always be able to be as fully present as I would have liked to be, and so
I totally feel the same, and I also think that for me it gets worse with
right.
time, with every year. I mean, it's like kind of like
Yeah.
staying home with Ronnie, kind of like you know what I mean, or really this 3 hours of sleep every night, and then you have to play your best and look your best, and
Yep,
it
totally. And
totally
so,
harder.
so there are some of these things that I definitely, that I think about. And I'm thinking, and as much fun as I had playing with that band, and but I'm thinking about like hitting the road in that kind of way again that we did
Yeah.
with them, and like wondering about, okay, this is really fun, but is this completely sustainable? Is this method of like as a human being as well,
Yeah, I think
so
well, it's you're well ahead of me in making the whole thing a so much more such a rounder, more healthy thing.
I don't know, I'm just thinking about it and trying to figure out what the right balance is, find the sweet spot.
Just like the solos, man.
Oh man.
Man, I gotta go because
Yep.
but man, I can't wait to see you, man.
Likewise,
Ronnie
brother.
sends
Nice
you
to talk
love.
to
It's been too long. This
you. Yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'll hopefully be in Berlin at some time before too long. Maybe even later this year. I can't remember where we're going, but we are supposedly doing a European tour in the autumn. So
Ah, great.
yeah,
I'm kind of all over this year.
yeah.
But it's
If you're there, maybe I'll see you.
we'll get there. We'll get there, man. Send a love to Maria. We'll
Will
see you
do,
guys
man.
real soon. It's
Okay.
great to see you. Thanks for letting me pick your brain.
Yeah, of course, man. It's nice to hang a little bit.
All right, brother. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.
Peace.